So I had to go to the property, I had to measure it, do the whole, exterior, but I was not allowed inside.
Oh no.
And
Hi, welcome to the Dream is Real podcast brought to you by Dream Select Realty. I'm Gigi, your host. Whether you're a first time home buyer, a seasoned investor, or simply curious about the world of real estate, this is the place for you. We dive deep into the latest trends, tips, and insights to help you make informed decisions and turn your real estate dreams into reality. Today, we are very excited to welcome Mary Soper to the show, a highly respected professional in the world of home appraisals with years of expertise under her belt. Mary's reputation for precision and insight makes her the go-to for understanding property values, and today she's giving us an inside look into the appraisal process. She's one of the best in the business, and we are thrilled to have her share her knowledge and experience with us today. Welcome, Mary.
thank you so much.
We are so excited to have you as our guest here. Thank you so much for joining. So let's get to know you a little better. Tell us about your background and what initially inspired you to become a home appraiser.
So I've been doing this for 28 years. Always have been interested in homes and interior design. Back when I was like 10, I used to go to the library and take out books about interior design and homes. So I've really always loved homes. And funny enough, when I was 20, I was working in a restaurant, and the owner of the Appraisal Foundation would come in for lunch, and he kept on, saying, "You should take the classes. You should take the classes." And I said, "You know what? I think I'm going to take them." So I took them, and the rest is history. So
I
yeah.
love that story. I love that. So you were also into home design. We love that topic too. So let's help us understand the appraisal process a little bit. How does the home appraisal process integrate with the overall home buying process in New York?
So you asking how like the process is, how the
Yes,
appraisal works? So
exactly.
I do private and I do bank work. So for bank work, we just get assigned a job randomly, and then we make the call to the homeowner and we try to figure out a time that works for both of us. And we go out, we inspect the property, we do a floor plan, we go to all the levels of the home, first, second, basement. We do all the amenities, pool house, tennis courts, docks, garages. And we have questions for the homeowners, learn about the house, any recent renovations, how old the house is. And then that's part of the process. The next process is we go out into the field and we find houses that have sold recently, similar to the subject, and we just make adjustments. And then we write up a report, which is probably around 20 pages and has maps and pictures, floor plans, comps, and
Wow.
yeah.
It's
So
very thorough and very extensive, right? How long can a home appraisal take in terms of, I don't know, weeks, months? How long is it?
oh, it's simple. So the inspection usually takes anywhere from like half an hour to 2 hours, depending on the size of the property and the amenities. Measuring the house, usually takes the longest. And then we usually have the appraisal out within 1 to 2 or 3 business days. It's back, so it's pretty quick. And it's
Oh
usually
my.
if it's a purchase, it's usually one of the last things that are performed before the closing. So, because an appraisal really for a bank only has a shelf life of like 3 to 4 months. Because the reason behind that is because then there's new comps, new home sales, and now there's new market data. So,
Right. Because you take all that into account, right? I was learning a little bit about it, and you have different types of factors that influence the appraisal, not just the home itself, right?
Oh, correct. Right.
So,
Location.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
location is important. That's basically location is number one, really. Then you
hmm.
have condition of the home, and then houses have some unique amenities that you want to find other homes that have something similar to that. So,
Yeah, that's so interesting to learn. And is the Long Island appraisal process different from other parts of New York State? Do they have one same law? Are they all the same? Or do they differ from area to area? Do you know?
I think New York is the same laws. I only have a license in New York, so that's all I know. And I usually just do Suffolk and Nassau. I do Queens, and on occasion I'll do Brooklyn. I do Fire Island. I do Fisher's Island. But I believe all New York State is all the same rules. But I just don't do
Mhm.
upstate. I just never did upstate, so I just don't feel qualified to do upstate. I just do my Suffolk and Nassau and Queens and Brooklyn.
That's interesting. So, how has technology advanced the home appraisal process in 2024? Like, are there any different things technology is changing, making it easier, making it faster, especially in busy markets like New York?
So I've been doing this for 28 years. And when I first started, we used to use regular cameras. We'd have to go to, the photo store and get them delivered, and we'd have to paste them into the reports. And since it was so costly, we would only do the front, the back, and one street scene. And then digital cameras came around. So then all of a sudden now they wanted all the pictures of all the rooms, all the sides of the house, all the amenities, because now, you put that in the report and just scan it into the report. And then just recently, they've always been trying to keep us more uniform. So now we measure the houses to the inch, where we used to do it to the foot, to the half foot. Now we do it to the inch. So, on a small house, it's not going to make much of a difference. But on a large house, believe it or not, to the inch can make actually a big difference.
Wow, like in the final result, more precise. So that translates to value, I guess.
Right. And then also, what I think the purpose was is that we're all doing the same. So, like a typical thing is like a cape with the second level kind of have a slanting roof. Some appraisers used to measure from wall to wall, but now the standard is it has to be 5 feet. So even if the walls go to the side, we don't give that value because you can't stand there. So it was just everyone was kind of doing their own thing. And then I
Yeah.
think they want to come along and say, we need it more uniform. It can't be one appraiser says this, one appraiser says the opposite. Another thing is some appraisers call the basement, if it has like an egress window, living space. And technically that is wrong. That is a basement and it's a finished basement, but it should not be included in the overall square footage. So that was another guideline change.
So who sets up the guidelines? Is there an association? How does that work?
Yeah, they come out with guidelines I think USPAP every few years. They just do some tweaks and changes, and it's not too many. I mean, it hasn't been a while since they made one, but I think there's one coming up that they're going to change some of the rules, and we'll just have to get used to that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's also simpler for you. Like, you know what, you all know what to do and you get same results because yes, if you're measuring the space where you cannot walk, like, of course,
right.
it's not part of the it's part of the house, but it's like it's not the same thing as a space where you can walk. And if everyone is doing something different, it must have been really
Right.
complex, right?
Right. So that's not usable space, right? If you can't stand underneath it. So some appraisers would say, oh, the house is 2,000 square feet. And then another appraiser would be like, oh, it's 2,200 square feet. So that's a big difference. So they try to make it more uniform so that we're all on the same page.
So we were talking about the factors that influence a home appraisal. We were saying location. Well, we are saying guidelines because, like, what I'm getting is this is not an exact science, right? It's like more of an agreement and understanding, and also you're measuring exact things, but lots of things come into into the game, right?
Right.
So, are there any other factors that influence a home appraisal?
Oh, sure.
Nick Cesarini, Weatherstone Mortgage is proud to partner with Dream Select Realty. We understand in this environment how hard it is to find the right home. You really need the right realtor and the right financial tools to be able to make that dream come true. Please reach out to either Dream Select Realty or Weatherstone Mortgage to start the process of that dream.
Are there any other factors that influence a home appraisal?
Oh, sure. Location is number one. Location is, you can have a house and you can do multiple things to it, but you can't change the location. The location is always going to be number one. Any improvement you do really does give it value. Let's see.
What
Square
about
footage is
economic
big.
factors? For example, interest rates, inflation. Do
Mhm.
they influence the appraisals?
Sure. So our value comes from things that have sold recently, right? So we are working with the market trends. So it's our job to see which house comps are things that have sold recently that we are using to compare to the subject. So we're always going to try to find houses that are similar in similar locations, similar amenities. So we kind of just watch that trend, and you can see, right now it's obviously a seller's market. Low inventory. So that's kind of changing things. It could change tomorrow, but that's what's happening right now. So
Yeah, that's so important. Do you know how have recent real estate market trends and changes in 2024 affected home appraisals in New York? Have they affected them?
sure. So right now, like I said, it's a seller's market. A lot of homes are going over asking price, which has been a little bit of a challenge for appraisers. So it's just somebody bids, 50,000 over asking price doesn't always mean it's going to appraise to that. So that has been I've been doing a lot of work for people just wanting to sell their house, but they want to see what a potential buyer could pay for the house and what an appraisal would come in at. So they want to be logical, and maybe they get multiple offers, but they might want to take the offer that's actually going to have an appraisal that comes through. So it's an interesting market.
It is. It is. So sellers and buyers sometimes require appraisals. What should they know regarding, how should they prepare for a home appraisal to ensure a fair valuation?
So are you asking how the sellers?
Yeah.
I guess
Like,
just
okay, I need an appraisal. Sorry, I need an appraisal. What should I do to make sure it's a fair valuation? Because that can influence their selling process, right?
right. So I guess if you were going to sell your house, you'd want put your house in the best state that it could be, right? So any minor, I wouldn't do major renovations, but anything you can do to make a house look more appealing, paint or just getting rid of things. It always looks better a house when it's, a little bit more empty. Giving the appraisers access to all the rooms, and sometimes that is an issue. I would get to a house and we can't get into the basement or we can't get into a bedroom. And that's important because sometimes we have to come back. So we have to make the appraisal subject to and then go back. So that just takes time and there's a cost with that. So you just want to make the house the best that it can possibly, but nothing major. Don't redo things. Just simple, minor touch-ups is a good idea always.
Such as paint, such as, for example,
Yeah, paint, like decluttering a garage, things like that. Just having access to all the rooms. If you're going to be moving anyway, maybe it's just better to start clearing out then.
Yeah.
So the rooms look bigger, it looks, more spacious, and people can envision what the house could look for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, what are your top tips for Long Island homeowners looking to increase their home value before an appraisal, including specific renovations and improvements, like we were saying? So, declutter. But if you want to really have, like, if you have a budget and you really want to go a little bit extra, what could you do?
So I think if you have carpets, you could have the carpets cleaned. Or if there's wood floors, sometimes you want to take out the carpets because people love wood floors. Like I said, I really wouldn't get into, unless you want to flip a house, I wouldn't redo kitchens or anything because somebody might have a totally different opinion, and but just anything to spruce it up. The landscaping, you might want to, throw mulch down for some curb appeal, paint if, that's something you can do. Power wash a deck, power wash a house. There's really simple things that you can do, but make a big impact. And in the basement, what I always suggest is sometimes you want to clean out the basement and maybe dry lock it or something just to give it a fresh, clean look. Kind of little things, not even that expensive. Maybe more manpower to do it, but it's got a big effect, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're getting ready to sell, like everything you can do to make the process go faster and better and get a better price for your property, right?
Mhm.
So, Could we discuss a little bit the impact of eco-friendly home features and energy efficiency on appraisals? Do they have an impact on it?
They do. They do. I mean, so solar panels have become kind of, big on Long Island. One thing people should know is if they're leased, we don't give value to leased solar panels. If they are owned, then we give that value. And that's a nice selling point. Another, I know, geothermal, that's another big thing. Heating, it's expensive, but if you have that, that's a nice selling feature. I think just updated appliances, things like that. That's always a big,
Yeah, that's super important. And the eco-friendly movement, it's making everything better. So it's understandable that they make homes more valuable, right?
It's more out east. They have that new cesspool system that's very extensive, but it's supposed to be very good for the environment. So any new construction is considered has to have that new feature. But it's a nice feature to have. It's really good for the environment, especially if you live near the waters.
That's awesome. So let's address some common misconceptions. Which myths are there about home appraisals? What do you encounter out there? And how can Long Island homeowners avoid those myths, misconceptions? What do you think?
I think sometimes people think appraisers are home inspectors, which we're not. We're there to inspect the property and report what we see. But we're not going to go as far as seeing if there's a oil tank that's been abandoned. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for to inspect the property and see the amenities and then report those amenities and compare them to other properties. So I think some people think we're home inspectors and we're not.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, people could get confused, but it's a very different job for a very different moment, right?
Right.
So what do you think this leads me to? We are in the digital age. So how reliable do you think online home appraisal tools, how reliable do you think they are compared to professional appraisals in New York's market?
Good question. So I know recently, I guess maybe with COVID, they came up with these like desktop where the homeowners would send the photos and maybe the appraiser would do like a drive-by, and then we were relying on the information from the homeowner. And I don't do those. That's a lot of making an assumptions, and I'm not, I don't believe in that. In fact, during COVID, I did 2 houses. It was called a COVID exterior appraisal. So I had to go to the property, I had to measure it, do the whole, exterior, but I was not allowed inside.
Oh no.
And the homeowners supplied me the information and they supplied me pictures. So a year later, I had to go back, and now it was, they said go and do a full appraisal. So on one house, they told me it was a 3-bedroom. And in fact, it was a 2-bedroom. They had taken down a wall, and now it was a 2-bedroom. That's one big issue. Converted one of the garages into living space. Never told me that. And there was a kitchen in the basement. And on the second one, same thing. They converted the garage. They had an apartment in the basement. So on 2 houses, those were 2 huge factors that was not, told to me. And
Yeah.
from that point on, I said, that's a little bit too much relying on the person. And I wasn't allowed to make an extraordinary assumption that the information that the homeowners told me was true. And if I couldn't make that clause, I said, I'm not doing that. So I feel like when you go to a house and you do the inspection, you see it, the pictures can look so different from what you see in person. There's the smell of the house. You don't get that on a picture, you don't see the neighborhood. You don't see what's behind them necessarily. So I'll do a drive-by, but in the drive-by, I can say, I'm making the extraordinary assumption that the house is in good condition, and then I'm covered. But I really don't even like doing drive-bys. I feel like I'd rather just go in and see the house.
Yes,
So
you need to see the house. Yes,
you do.
I can't even start to imagine what was going on in your mind when you found out you were going to do an appraisal without going into the house. That must have been so stressful. Oh my God, COVID was. But
Yeah.
So did everyone start doing it? Did you come up with the idea? because people still needed to like sell homes and move, right? That I imagine that's why that happened. What do you think?
Yes. So I think they were making all these exceptions. So I think I think I did four. I remember one the people had COVID. So I wasn't allowed in
Ooh.
the house, but I was allowed to go to the house. I was able to do the exterior and they sent me photos and that's how we did it. But there were also pictures online from MLS. So there was something to back it up with. So there were pictures from multiple listings. So that was good. And then I had the two that I had the problem with. And then I think I did another one that worked out fine. Oh, no, no. No, that was in the Hamptons. And I was like pulling teeth trying to get photos. He would send me one. Meanwhile, there was like 5 bathrooms. So I'm like, I need all the bathrooms. And it was a little bit of back and forth. But it's just easier for me to go to the property and just measure it, see it. And, because pictures online can be so deceiving.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I imagine this like a situation like asking for homework, like do your homework, please, because you need the appraisal. So help me help you, right?
Right, right, right. And then you have to worry that they send a picture of their kitchen. It could be a picture of somebody else's picture that has been almost all remodeled,
Oh no,
So,
like cheating. They were
yeah,
cheating.
yeah. So I rather just go to a house and see it, smell it, feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides your signing, your name is next to the appraisal. Are there any legal consequences if things are not like as they say they are? What is that like?
So normally on a regular drive-by, I can say that I'm making the extraordinary assumption that the house is in good condition, no defects, whatever. But on those COVID drive-bys, you were not allowed to make that assumption. So luckily, I only did like 4 of those. Now they're not offering those anymore, which is great. And now they offer desktop, so you don't even go to the property. And I don't do those either. I just don't feel comfortable doing them. I just feel like I'm old school. I like to see the house. I like to be there. I feel like I'm giving 100% in the appraisal.
Yes, yes, I can tell you do. So, how do you stay updated with the latest regulation affecting home appraisals in New York, Mary? How do you do that?
Well, we do continuing ed. We have to, every 2 years, we do 28 hours of continuing ed. So we're always keeping up to date. And then it's up to us to look at, market data and see what's going on in the neighborhoods. And, there's a lot of data out there, public record and MLS. They all keep us kind of posted on what's happening.
How do local zoning laws and regulation in Long Island affect home appraisal values? What about flood zones, environmental risks? What do you think about all this?
Those are definitely factors in the appraisal. Every town has different zonings, so you have to kind of get familiar with all the different zonings. Flood zones, that's an issue, but usually if I am doing a house in a flood zone, all my comps are also in flood zones. So that is your location. So I really would want to use other properties in a flood zone. Yeah. So
Yeah. So that's super important to take into account because if you're going to buy a home and it's in the flat zone or there are all these factors that people can also take into account when thinking of buying a home, right?
Right. Yeah, that would be in the appraisal. Like it's in a flood zone. Those are all important factors. But I guess usually if you want to live by the water, that is a factor, flood zones and just different zonings. Like I said, every community has different laws as far as zoning and rebuilding. We just have to get familiar with all the different towns. But that's in the report, zoning and classifications. And
yeah. So are there different types of home appraisers? Because one should choose the one that's right for their property, right? What do you think about this?
So if it's bank work, if that's what you mean, the banks send out the appraisers. So we're on different lists.
I also mean if you have different sorts of properties, for example, if you have like, condo or a house, do you have appraisers that are specifically working in sorts of properties, or do you all do all the properties?
So a certified appraiser, which is what I am, you can do up to 4 families, and there's no limit as far as the value. And we can do condos, co-ops, but then there's commercial appraisers, and they can only do commercial properties, and that's a different license. So I can't do commercial. We can do like a mixed use, and there's like a percentage of how much is home and how much is used for, like, let's say a dentist office. I've done those before, but commercial end of it has to be very low. And then the house part of it has to be high. So we are allowed to do that. So there is commercial appraisers, and then there's residential appraisers. And then there's licensed appraisers who can only appraise up to a certain amount, and then the certified who can do,
Yeah. That's super important and interesting to know the difference. Have you ever done luxury properties in Long Island?
Yes.
So are they more difficult? Oh, that's awesome.
I've done beautiful homes. Yes. They're more work because usually they're bigger, so you have to measure. There's more amenities. There's pools, there's indoor pools, there's tennis courts. And then you just learn, like a tennis court that faces east to west is less valuable than north to south. Like, there's so many little amenities. Just, I've seen it all. Being on the water.
East to west is more expensive than east.
It depends where the house is because of the sun direction, believe it or not. But then also another nice feature is if they're sunken. When you have like the stonework, so that it's less wind. So there's so many factors into a tennis court, and you have to learn all the locations. And yes, it's very interesting.
I would have never imagined that. That's so specific. Like, right, if you're playing tennis and the wind comes and blows your ball, your tennis ball away, so it'll be better if it's sunken, right?
Wow. With landscaping around it, so trees to block the wind. It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clay courts, and then there's asphalt courts. So there's so many different features, but yeah.
So tennis courts are definitely very specific, and they have a lot of extra information for an appraiser. Are there any other challenges in luxury homes? Anything specific that you say, okay, doing an appraiser, but they have, I don't know, a pool and they are more difficult or whatever?
Well, sure, because usually they come with pool houses, multiple buildings a lot. They'll have garages, 2-car garages, the lofts, and just overall measuring the houses. I think like the largest house I ever measured was 13,000 square feet, which is really huge. An average house is 2,000. So saying something's 13,000 square feet, it's huge. And measuring them, it's fun. It's fun.
How long did that take?
They literally can take like 2 hours, believe it or not. It's because the first level is so easy to measure because I have laser, and then I have like the big tape measure. But then the second story isn't always the same floor plan as the first floor. So that can get a little bit more tricky. But yeah, I've done houses that were actually like a complete X. If you looked at it from the sky, aerial, it'd be a complete X, and just very interesting houses. But
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So what impact does neighborhood development have on individual home appraisals in Long Island?
So do you mean like a new neighborhood? Like
when a neighborhood is like changing and new coffee shops or the opposite too, how do they influence a home appraisal?
So the comps are what really help the appraiser come up with the value of the home. So we just, as appraisers, watch what's been happening in that neighborhood, and we look back a year and see the trends that have been happening. And that's what we really like to use, more recent comps, in the last 3 to 6 months, because that's what's happening right now. But on some unusual properties, I will go back 2 years because we have some unusual properties maybe that are on a pond or on the bay, and we don't have so many comps, so we can go back a year. And if needed, we can make a time adjustment. But that's all researching the market data to see if a time adjustment is even necessary.
Absolutely. So what about financial considerations? What advice would you give homeowners looking to refinance their mortgage in light of recent appraisal trends?
So, since it's been a seller's market and we have been seeing the values go up, if somebody refinances, especially if they've done some work to their house, there's usually some equity. And so it is worthwhile to refinance if they want to either get a lower rate or maybe take some money out. But in this market, everything has been, steadily kind of going up, and be interesting to see what happens in the future. But with refinancing, if they want to, they would go through the bank, and the bank, signs the appraiser, and same thing. You want to show your house in the best condition that it could possibly be. I mean, really, appraisers are just looking at the bones of the house, but everything looks a little bit better if it's, everything's put away. It's, neat and tidy. It does, does make it nice.
Absolutely. So what about the future of home appraisals? Looking ahead, what future trends do you foresee in the home appraisal industry in New York for 2024 and beyond?
I think they were trying to get away from the appraisers and trying to do just these desktop appraisers, but the banks I work with don't seem to be going to that trend. I think it was during COVID, there was so much business, and I was booking 2 weeks out. So appraisers were, the appraisals were taking longer, but that was just because of that unusual situation with COVID, that it was just such a hot market. Now it seems like, at least the banks I work for, they want an actual appraisal. And I hope it stays with that trend, because I'm not really interested in doing the desktops, because I just don't feel comfortable with them. School. Yeah.
And you have to stick to your style, like what's true to yourself, and that's what makes you good, because other people will be good doing other sorts of things. So that's great that you stick to what you think is best. So Mary, you've been doing home appraisals for a long time. Do you have any other hobbies, interests?
Sure. I love to walk. I like to exercise. I take classes. I love to travel with my family, although it's a little hard now because, the kids are getting older, but I do like to. We just went to Montana, so that was nice. I have my dogs that I love. I love my dogs.
Which dogs do you have? Which sort of dog?
Two. That's the Caesar dogs, the little white dogs. Yes, I have a brother and a sister, so they keep us busy. And I like to read. I like to keep busy
I love
too.
that. Yes, that's great, Mary. And this has been so great. And we love how you explained everything you do and taught us about home appraisals. Thank you so much for joining. How could someone looking to work with you, contact you?
I do work on Angie's List, so I do get work that way, and that's a little bit of my freelance work. And then I am on bank lists. So I think some people think that, because it used to be this way, you could pick your appraiser to do like if you were going to buy or refinance, but that's not the case. Banks have to assign their own. So even when I get some private work, they'll say, I'll be like, oh, what do you need the appraisal for? And they're like, oh, I want to reduce my PMI. And then I have to say, well, I want to be honest with you. You probably can't use this appraisal for that, because the bank will have their own appraiser. So and then they're very thankful for that, because then they have to go through their bank. But so I do private and I do bank work. So so if you see me under Angie's List, I'm on that. And
that's great. That's great, Mary. Anything we didn't ask, anything you'd like to say before we go?
Thank you for having me. Really, it was a pleasure to meet you and Dream Select Realty. I love that you're a local realty and have all these podcasts to educate people with buying and selling homes. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. We appreciate it. And we are super excited that you joined us for an episode. We can't wait to everyone to see it. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow Dream Select Realty on Instagram and TikTok, and Dream Select Home on X. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit the Dream Select Realty website, dreamselectrealty.com, for investment opportunities and future events. We'll be seeing you next time. Bye-bye. Bye, Mary.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.